Caleb, the miraculous warrior whose faithful heart conquered Hebron by God's divine plan, in the 3rd year of Jehoiakim king of Judah, as the sun blistered the land of Canaan, an aged yet indomitable warrior stood before Joshua, the son of Nun. Caleb, a stalwart of the tribe of Judah, was now 85 but bore the spirit of a young lion. Dust clung to his sandals, remnants of years spent wandering the wilderness due to the faithlessness of his kin. Yet, his heart burned vibrant with a conviction that transcended time, a testimony to the promises of the Almighty. 45 years have passed since I first beheld the land flowing with milk and honey, and the heart of Hebron captured my soul, Caleb proclaimed with a voice steady and unwavering. He recalled the day when he, alongside the 10 spies, first gazed upon the daunting Anakim, a fearsome people known for their stature and might. While others quaked at their presence, Caleb felt the overshadowing might of Yahweh. It was as though the very mountains whispered to him, echoing the covenant of an Almighty who never forsakes his word. Old scars of doubt still haunted his kin, but Caleb was resolute. "Give me this mountain." His proclamation resonated with the ancient promise Moses had spoken to him in the wilderness. Joshua stood tall, moved deeply by Caleb's boldness and faith, and granted his request, yet foreboding darkness lingered upon the path to Hebron, a treacherous ascent where giants dwelled. With courage enkindled, Caleb trekked to Hebron, his heart drumming the cadence of battle. The mountains loomed ominously above, crowned by the descendants of giants who had fortified the land, their laughter echoing like phantoms taunting the faithful. Yet, Caleb's spirit was ablaze. The real giants were not the Anakim, but the fear and doubt that had ensnared the hearts of his people. Caleb lifted his gaze toward the horizon, declaring with unwavering faith, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" His thoughts stirred the echoes of a legacy forged in divine promise. He proclaimed with conviction, "Today, I will take Hebron." His words did not merely represent his desire, they stitched faith into the hearts of his brethren gathered beside him, igniting a fervent desire for victory against overwhelming odds. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Caleb readied himself to confront the Anakim, his heart echoing with the name of the Lord. The ground trembled beneath him, not with fear, but with fervent anticipation of victory. The air thickened with tension as he approached the fortified citadel, armed with faith that defied the odds. With each step toward the towering giants, he understood that he was not merely fighting flesh and blood, he was engaged in an age-old spiritual battle. What will it take to conquer these fearsome giants? Caleb stood on the precipice of destiny, poised to fulfill the divine promise. The battle for Hebron awaited, and though the challenges loomed dark and treacherous, he remained unwavering, heart fortified by the trust in his God. Yet the answer to whether God's promise would be realized in this moment hovered like the storm clouds gathering above. The roar of the approaching battle would soon reveal all that lay ahead, setting the stage for the unfolding of God's mighty plan. As Caleb approached the towering walls of Hebron, the ground beneath his feet trembled with both fear and faith. The cries of the Anakim rang out like thunder as they prepared to defend their stronghold, their shadows cast large against the fading sunlight. Caleb stood firm, a resolute figure amid the turmoil, his faith becoming the very armor with which he would engage this fearsome foe. "Yahweh has promised me this land," Caleb declared, his voice cutting through the clamor like a sharp sword. He again remembered the words spoken to him by Moses, the servant of the Lord, "Surely the land where your foot has trodden shall be your inheritance," Deuteronomy 1 verse 36. With fire kindled in his chest, his heart echoed the promise of God. No wall could match the might of the Almighty. The Anakim stood in defense, monstrous figures clad in iron and armor, their prowess born from generations of warriors. Yet Caleb, undeterred by their stature, summoned his companions. "Brothers, today we fight not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities," he urged, gesturing toward the formidable walls. "Remember the promise God made. He fights for us, and we shall not yield." The might of the army behind him rallied, hearts ignited by Caleb's unwavering faith. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of crimson and gold, it signaled not just the end of the day, but the beginning of a challenge that would forge a legacy. With battle cries echoing like trumpets of old, they surged toward the stronghold of Hebron. Caleb engaged the first wave of the Anakim, his sword clashing against steel. Each strike was bolstered by a resolve that surged deeper than the fear around him. And as he fought, memories of his past echoed through his mind, the whispers of the wilderness, the miracles of manna, and the parting of the Red Sea. Each recollection was a testament to God's faithfulness, a reminder that every promise would be fulfilled. Yet in the midst of battle, a voice cried out from the stronghold, instilling doubt. "Foolish old man, do you not see our strength? Even your God cannot help you now." Caleb's heart sank momentarily, but he took a breath, steadied by the Spirit of the Lord. "Our strength is not measured by size, but by faith. For it is written, not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, declares the Lord Almighty." Zechariah 4 verse 6. In that profound moment, the heavens seemed to respond. A wind swirled through the valley, stirring the dust of the earth and drawing forth a vigor that surged through the hearts of the Israelites. Caleb, sensing the movement of the Holy Spirit upon them, shouted, "Onward! The Lord is with us." With renewed strength, they pressed forth, overcoming against the odds. The Anakim, caught in surprise and confusion, faltered as the Israelites launched their fierce assault. The walls of Hebron began to tremble, and with every swing, every battle cry, Caleb pressed onward, as determined as the sun rising upon a new day. As the first light of dawn kissed the mountain peaks, the sound of victory began to echo through the heavens. But suddenly, amidst the clamor of conquest, something extraordinary occurred, a manifestation of divine presence. A mysterious glow enveloped the battlefield. Caleb paused, his heart quickened, sensing something was astir. The victory was near, yet the air thickened with suspense. What lay behind this sign of glory? As he turned toward the source, his eyes widened at the vision of divine purpose unfolding before him, hinting at a greater plan than mere territorial conquest, shrouding the coming days in uncertain yet divine mystery. The ancient promise was not only for Hebron but was destined to echo throughout generations to come. What might this mean for the people of Israel and the unfolding of God's sovereign narrative? As the light of dawn fully illuminated the battlefield, Caleb was struck by the radiance enveloping them, a beacon of divine favor. The glow intensified, casting shadows that danced amidst the fierce ongoing clash. Both the soldiers of Israel and the Anakim faltered momentarily, their fight paused by the heavenly manifestation. In that hallowed moment, Caleb recalled the promise of the Lord spoken to Moses, "The Lord your God, who goes before you, shall fight for you," Deuteronomy 1 verse 30. With renewed assurance, he called to his men, "Brothers, behold the hand of the Almighty. Take courage, for our victory is assured." The Israelite warriors, inspired by the shine of God's glory, screamed a war cry that pierced the heavens. It echoed not just with a thirst for victory but with a profound trust in the faithfulness of their mighty God. They charged at the Anakim, the very ground trembling beneath them as they pushed against the stronghold. Yet, as they fought, a shuddering realization swept through Caleb: this confrontation was about more than a city, it was a battle for the very heart and soul of God's people. As the Anakim, towering and fierce, fell to the might of the Israelite faith, Caleb saw more than physical strength. He witnessed a spiritual awakening among his people, a rekindling of trust in their covenant God. As the fierce combat raged on, the sound of splintering shields and clashing swords drew closer around him. One of Caleb's companions, Othniel, fought valiantly at his side. "Caleb," he shouted over the din, "the walls will not withstand our faith. Forward! I, Othniel. Together we shall claim this land." Caleb led the charge once more, his spirit aflame with divine purpose. They swiftly overcame those who stood against them, the promise of God energizing every movement. Amidst the chaos, Caleb felt the Lord's presence so palpably that doubt itself was vanquished. As the last remnants of resistance collapsed, the walls of Hebron echoed the sound of victory. Caleb and his warriors stood amidst the debris, their breaths heavy but hearts lightened by divine reward. They paused, gazing at the glow surrounding the city, still persistent, as if heaven itself endorsed their triumph. But an unsettling thought struck Caleb: this victory, this land gained what awaited beyond Hebron. Was this merely a point in time, or was God's plan much larger? With this contemplation, he climbed a mound of rubble, lifting his sword high. Thus far has the Lord brought us. He has given us this land, and with it, the promise of his enduring faithfulness. Then the glow began to shift, revealing a pathway that stretched beyond the city limits, leading towards the hills of Judah, shimmering in the light of a new dawn. Caleb squinted against the radiance, and as understanding dawned upon him, it became clear this victory was only the beginning of a greater journey. What lies beyond the horizon? Caleb pondered aloud, turning to his men. In their eyes, he saw not just victory, but an unyielding hope. As they settled into the land God had granted, the spirit of anticipation loomed over Caleb, questioning what further revelations awaited them in the unfolding story of their God, the God who commands the heavens and orchestrates the hearts of men. What future glories and trials lay ahead, intertwined in the tapestry of divine response? And among the ruins of what once stood against them, the faithful would learn that every promise from Yahweh was laced with purpose, a purpose reaching far into the depths of covenant history yet to unfold, hinting at an eternal legacy set forth by the hand of the sovereign Lord. And so it was that as Caleb and his men celebrated their remarkable victory, the glow surrounding Hebron became a resplendent beacon, illuminating the hills and valleys waiting beyond. The air was rich with the fragrance of hope, yet beneath the surface, a current of anticipation tugged at Caleb's spirit. For he sensed that the Lord was revealing something profound. "Let us gather together," Caleb commanded, summoning the hearts of his warriors. "This day, we have reclaimed what was ours by divine decree, and we must now seek the next command of our God. Our victory is not solely for ourselves but for the fulfillment of his promises written to the generations." The men assembled with eyes full of fervor, ready to hear from their leader. Isaiah's words echoed in Caleb's heart, "For this is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me." Isaiah 54 verse 17. The promise of the land was not merely physical, it was a spiritual legacy meant to extend through all of Israel. Caleb turned toward the hills of Judah, also known as the land of their inheritance. "Brothers," he declared, his voice steady and bold, "the Lord has placed us as stewards over this land, and thus, we must prepare ourselves for what comes next. For the land waits for us to claim our inheritance, and the strength of the Lord will always be our guide." The warriors nodded, emboldened by the divine affirmation resting upon them. Yet, within Caleb, there stirred a question yet unanswered. With every heartbeat, he could feel the Lord pulling him toward a greater purpose, a mission that transcended his own exaltation. The congregation's murmurs faded into silence as Caleb lifted his eyes, and with the fervency of a prophet, he spoke, "We have witnessed the might of God today. But demonic fortresses still linger in the shadows, remnants of doubt and fear that the people have carried for too long. So, who among us will venture with me to drive out those spirits of fear that have plagued us? Who will step courageously into the unknown as we march beyond these gates?" Othniel stepped forward, his eyes aflame with conviction. "I shall go with you, Caleb. Together we will not only conquer lands but fortify the hearts of our people. Then let us prepare our hearts and seek the counsel of the Lord," Caleb declared, his spirit soaring. And with that, they assembled their supplies and gathered their families. They prayed fervently for guidance, invoking the promise of Joshua, who had made known that where their feet tread, the land was theirs, Joshua 1 verse 3. As they embarked down the path of the hills, the sunlight blazed down upon them, illuminating their road ahead. Each footfall stirred up the dust and the anticipation of the unknown. The men, emboldened in faith, moved alongside Caleb, their voices lifted in praise. But unbeknownst to them, watching from afar were the remnants of the Anakim fleeing warriors who still clung to their strongholds. They whispered among one another, sharing tales not of valor, but of fear. These Israelites, emboldened by their victory, shall not be satisfied. They seek to reclaim not just lands but dominion over our hearts. Meanwhile, above, the heavens were alive with an unfolding plan. The angels of God took watch, their hearts echoing the decree, for this faithful remnant has been chosen to fulfill a promise long foretold, a promise that shall reach beyond the horizon, weaving a destiny through trials and triumphs. And Caleb marched forward, his heart racing at the thought of what lay ahead. What awaits us in the hills? He wondered, feeling the weight of the divine call resting upon his shoulders. For within the promises of victory and legacy lay an even greater tapestry, stretching far beyond his imagination, and each step he took would lead them closer to the heart of God's sovereign plan, uniquely unfolding in the story of Israel. As Caleb and Othniel led their band forward, they were enveloped in a profound sense of purpose. The land of Judah, vast and diverse, presented them with challenges both physical and spiritual. It was not merely the might of man that would secure their path, but the grace of the Almighty. The sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting shadows long and dark, forming a veil over the landscape. Caleb paused, sensing the weight of the moment. His warriors looked to him, their hearts intertwined with anticipation and faith. Brothers, it is not just the land we pursue, but the freedom that lies beyond fear. Caleb exclaimed, his voice resonating through the dusk. For it is written, do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1 verse 9. Let us steel our hearts against all doubts. The men responded with a chorus of affirmations, their spirits rising like the dawn. Neither fear nor doubt would have dominion over them, for they yearned not only to forge a path through the land but to illuminate the hearts of their people with the radiant truth of God's promises. As they journeyed onward, the whispers of the Anakim grew louder, echoing through the valleys as they spread tales of despair and intimidation. One among them, a chief known as Arba, roused the spirits of his brethren. These Israelites are emboldened by victory, they come to invade our homes. We must clutch tighter the remnants of our strength. Their God may be with them, but we know the ways of war. Meanwhile, above the battleground of the earth, the angels continued to observe the unfolding saga. They marveled at Caleb's resolve, whispering among themselves, for the Lord's chosen shall not falter, as he weaves strength from weakness and glory from despair. Through the treacherous terrain, Caleb's band approached the valley that led to the fortress of the Anakim. Here, generations of fear had festered and thrived. Caleb felt the tremors in the ground, a sign of both a challenge and an opportunity. He raised his staff towards the heavens, invoking the name of the Lord. O God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob! Empower us this day to vanquish the spirits of fear. Just as you allowed us to conquer Hebron, breathe your spirit upon us now. His prayer echoed within the hearts of his warriors, illuminating their faith with renewed fervor. As the sun broke forth from behind the horizon, Caleb's eyes fell upon a great stone altar, remnants of an ancient worship site dedicated to false gods. The sight solidified his resolve. Behold! The altar of Baal, he called out to his men. We must dismantle the roots of deception that have ensnared our brethren. Their souls cry out for liberation, and we shall carry forth the torch of truth. Moved by the vision of a liberated people, Othniel stepped forward with unyielding conviction. Let us tear it down and raise an altar unto the Most High. For our trust is in Him alone, the true God who delivers and saves. With strong hands, they began to dismantle the altar stone by stone. Each strike resounded with spiritual purpose. Fear and doubt were replaced by faith and courage, the cries of the Anakim echoing like shadows fading into the dawn. Yet, back in the shadows, Arba and his warriors gathered to strategize. They dismantle our sacred stones, but we will not let them prevail. They claim to carry a divine mandate, but we hold the fierce strength of our ancestors. We must descend upon them with cunning and force. As a thick mist settled, Caleb sensed the impending confrontation. The air became charged with divine anticipation, the stage set for a battle far greater than the eyes could see. "Brothers," Caleb declared, standing amidst the wreckage of false worship, "as we tread forward, we walk not alone. The Lord goes with us. We will overcome, for he has not brought us this far to abandon us now. Listen. The promises of our God rise like the fortress of Zion." And thus they stood firm, ready for the battle that would unveil the depths of God's sovereign plan, revealing to Israel that victory is not merely in the conquest of lands but in the tearing down of spiritual strongholds, ushering in a new era of faith that transcends generations. What awaited them beyond the valley would be a revelation of divine purpose, a fulfillment of the covenant long upheld through eternal ages. As dawn broke over the horizon, the land of Judah awoke in a cacophony of sounds: birds singing, leaves rustling, and the distant hoofbeats of the Anakim warriors gathering for battle. Caleb, sensing the gravity of the moment, turned his gaze to the heavens. The robust glow of the sun brought forth a light as vibrant as the promises bestowed upon him and his people. "Awake, O Israel!" Caleb called out, his voice firm and unwavering. "The day of deliverance is at hand. Our enemies cry out with their feigned strength, but we shall proclaim the might of our God. For the Lord our God is a consuming fire, and he will go before us." The warriors rallied to him, their hearts ignited by his spirit. Othniel, standing at Caleb's side, echoed, with courage fortified by faith, "We shall stand against any foe. Let us don the armor of God and bear the shield of faith as we advance into this battle. As it is written, 'The Lord is my strength and my shield, my heart trusts in him, and he helps me,' Psalm 28 verse 7. The men took up their swords and shields, their spirits lifted by the words of their leaders. They formed ranks as the sunrise painted the sky with hues of orange and gold, a divine spectacle bearing witness to the fledgling faith of the Israelites. However, unbeknownst to Caleb and his warriors, Arba had summoned the might of the Anakim to ambush them in the valley. The river that ran through the valley would soon swell, a warning of impending flood, yet, they marched onward, the heart of faith igniting their souls against adversity. "Fear not," Caleb bellowed. "For the Lord who fought for us, against the giants of Egypt, will fight for us once more." But as the armies met in the valley, a heavy mist began to deepen, veiling the sight of the opposing forces. In their unseen chambers, the Anakim chanted incantations, invoking dark forces to bolster their resolve. "The terror of the Israelites strengthens us," Arba declared, gripping his spear. "They are but men, yet they believe they are invincible. Surrender is the only path they have." Yet Caleb remained undaunted. "Lift your eyes, brothers. For he who delivered us from bondage shall now deliver us from this darkness." He raised his staff, and light began to emanate from its tip, piercing through the mist that sought to shroud them. The warriors of Israel, emboldened, surged ahead, embattled but not broken. A swift clash of swords ensued. The mountains echoed with the cries of men, both triumphant and despairing. As the battle raged, the spirit of fear took flight before the presence of calm found in Caleb's unwavering faith. With each warrior who fell, the heart of the covenant pulsed more strongly amongst them. Then suddenly, Caleb recognized the altar stones they had dismantled. Memory flooded over him the nighttime prayers, the stories of their forefathers, and the promises of their God. "O Lord God of Israel," he called out amidst the clamor, "let the hearts of the Anakim see the truth of your covenant. Let not the blood of your people fall in vain." In that moment, a tremor coursed through the earth. The foundations of fear beneath the Anakim surged with the very spirit of panic. Caleb watched as the once fearsome warriors turned upon each other, confusion reigning in their hearts. The Lord's miracles unfolded before him, and the promise of might was evident beyond the tangible warfare. A spiritual revival was taking place. Realizing the tide had turned, Caleb steeled himself for the climax. These stones will testify against the idols they worship. Today, the true and living God will reveal his glory. As daylight spread across the battlefield, a new dawn broke not only for Caleb and his warriors but for all tribes of Israel, those who would believe. And as Caleb's sword rose high above the tumult, a divine silence fell, underscoring the moment. The staggering realization began to dawn: the battle was not just against flesh and blood but against every spiritual force taunting God's people. What greater plan lay hidden in the Almighty's heart, poised beyond mere victory? As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the valley with a brilliant light, the chaos of battle began to shift. The warriors of Israel pressed forward, emboldened by Caleb's unwavering faith and the Lord's miraculous hand. The cries of the Anakim faltered, each warrior caught in the grip of terror, their confusion rendering them powerless against the advancing Israelites. Caleb felt the promise of their forefathers swell within him. "Remember, brothers, the God we serve," he shouted. "He is the one who split the sea and led our ancestors through. His covenant stands firm, a promise unbroken. Today, let us move with the valor of David against Goliath." With renewed fervor, the Israelites surged into the fray. The ground vibrated beneath the weight of clashing steel, yet in their hearts, the sound of victory rang louder than any sword. Othniel raised his spear, rallying those around him. "Onward, faithful servants of the Most High. Today, we reclaim our inheritance." Yet, as the echoes of battle surged, a sudden bolt of fear coursed through Caleb. He sensed a shadow lurking at the periphery of the glory unfolding. Beyond the visible realm, the Anakim conjured dark forces even more fearsome than their stature. The cries of their leaders grew desperate as they sought to summon ancient spirits, claiming victory through incantation. "Shall he who called us deliver us from mere foes, or shall we proceed blinded by our own strength?" Caleb thought, a wave of doubt washing over his spirit even amid the fervent fight. But as he raised his staff once more, the Lord spoke to him, echoing the promise given in times of old. "Fear not, for I have delivered them into your hands." If the Anakim thought they could intimidate through sorcery, they would encounter the power of the living God. Remembering the worship in their camps, Caleb called upon the ancestors of faith, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. "Let the ancient altars be our stronghold. Let the prayers of generations lift us above this storm." At Caleb's words, the wind stirred fiercely, and the very heavens seemed to resonate with divine approval. The skies darkened momentarily, and with a clap of thunder, a bright beam pierced down, striking the ground where Caleb stood, a testament of God's presence with his people. The tide turned so drastically that Caleb saw the Anakim falter. Their eyes no longer reflected the menace of giants, but confusion and dread. "What is this?" Arba screamed, realizing the battle was lost before him. In the heart of the chaos, the former bravado of the Anakim shattered, scattering before Caleb and the faithful warriors of Israel. Caleb surged forward, emboldened. "Let us finish what the Lord has begun. This day, we conquer Hebron." The enemy fell back, and the warriors of Israel pressed on, eager to inherit the land promised to them. As the last remnants of the Anakim fled, the ground hallowed beneath the feet of Caleb's warriors. The promises of God stood firm, and the embodiment of gratitude filled the hearts of his people as they sang psalms of thanksgiving. Yet amidst the triumph, a whisper lingered in Caleb's heart. What lay ahead for their people, O Lord? The battle was won, but the war waged deeper against the spirits of doubt and despondency. Victory had come, yet the journey was far from complete. In this understanding, Caleb turned his eyes once more to the heavens, the sun glistening at its apex. Thus far has the Lord led us, but what plans yet remain for this mighty people? This victory bears witness, yet the fullness of his glory unfolds in the generations to come. And with that, Caleb declared an oath, an appeal to the generations: "Fear not, for the Lord has good things in store for us, and he is yet to reveal the fullness of his promise. Shall we walk in faith as the foundation for what is coming? The warriors echoed their leader's sentiments, their hearts resonating with the covenant entwined in the very fabric of their being. With this promise lingering in the air, what further designs lay hidden in the fabric of God's sovereign will? What future? Victories awaited them, as they marched ever closer to the heart of the land bestowed upon them. As the sun began its slow descent, casting a golden hue upon the battlefield, the sound of celebration erupted among the Israelites. The air thrummed with voices raised in praise, their hearts alight with the joy of victory and the wonder of God's might. Praise be to the Lord, who has fought for us. They sang, their spirits soaring as they recalled the grace that had led them. Caleb stood at the forefront of this jubilant throng, his heart a mixture of elation and contemplation. Their conquest of Hebron had not merely been a military victory, it was a testament to the unyielding faithfulness of Yahweh. Yet even in their joy, he felt the weight of what lay ahead. O Lord, he prayed quietly, let me not grow complacent in the assurance of victory, for your ways stretch far beyond our sight. The remnants of the Anakim scattered into the hills, leaving only echoes of their defeat. But the vigilant Caleb, weary yet resolute, felt a stirring within him. Guided by the Lord's whisper, he rallied the tribes of Israel. Let us not simply rest in this victory, for there are lands yet to claim, promises yet to fulfill, and enemies that must bow before our God. Exodus from bondage was one birth of their identity, but now was the time to embrace the full measure of that identity. The blessings of the land were not to be hoarded, but shared, and Caleb envisioned the cities of refuge, the homes of peace, to be established among the people. As night cloaked the valley, the fires glimmered like stars fallen to the ground. The elders of Israel gathered around to hear Caleb's words, their faces illuminated by the sacred flames. Brethren, he proclaimed, as the Lord delivered our enemies before us, so he will guide us further into the promise. We stand on the precipice of restoration. Will we allow him to mold us into the vessels of his strength? Among them stood Joshua, Caleb's loyal companion, who nodded fervently. We have witnessed the hand of God, and we must remember, it is not by our might, but by his Spirit that we have triumphed. It is time to lay forth our foot upon the next ground. At this affirmation, a tide of fervor swelled in the assembly. But in the shadows, an unease lurked. The spirits of the Anakim, not vanquished by mere swords, conspired to rise anew. Whispers of despair would seek to undermine Israel's confidence. Caleb felt this foreboding in his bones. Fear not, he reminded them, echoing the words of old. The Lord is our strong tower. We shall not falter under the weight of anxiety, for our God fights on our behalf. Yet Caleb's thoughts were troubled, as visions of trials yet unseen danced like specters before him. He sensed that the journey before them would not be a mere walking upon easy earth, but a pathway marked by the struggles that forge greatness. Gather your families and your leaders, he instructed, for the Lord's covenant must be cherished, and his laws must guide our hearts as we build our inheritance. The fullness of his promise rests upon our obedience. As dawn approached, casting hope upon the land, Caleb's heart soared, yet remained tethered by the knowledge of the battles unseen. Each tribe stood firm, renewed in purpose, ready to march forth to embrace their destiny. Then came a hush that fell over the camp, as the distant roars of nature seemed to still in expectation. It was there that Caleb felt the unshakable presence of God within him. O Lord, he breathed, what greater work awaits us? May we remain steadfast, for I sense the winds of your purpose stirring. Shall we not prepare to enter the unknown with hearts ignited by your fire? Thus, as the horizon brightened with a new day, the air thickened with divine anticipation. They were on the brink of greater victories, for soon they would discover that the true battle was not in the flesh, but waged against fear and doubt. What miraculous wonders awaited them in the sacred unfolding of the Lord's plan? Caleb's eyes sparkled with an insight yet veiled, for he knew that even now, the Almighty laid paths of glory for his children. As the first light of dawn began to illuminate the camp, the air stirred with a blend of hope and apprehension. Caleb, with his heart set steadfastly upon the Lord, gathered the leaders and families of Israel, feeling the weight of the moment. "Hear me, O children of Israel," he called, his voice echoing through the veil. "The time has come to take possession of the promise. Our God has paved the way before us, and we shall stride boldly forth into his inheritance." From the midst of the assembly, Joshua stepped forward, his countenance steadfast. "Let us remember the words of Moses," he declared. "The Lord our God has promised, he will not leave you nor forsake you." Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. We are not solitary in this quest, we are woven into his mighty plan. With spirits lifted, the clans of Israel began to move, their footsteps barely whispering against the soil of the land that had long been their heart's desire. Caleb, with unyielding faith, led the charge, recalling the tales of their forefathers, the redemptive acts of God that shaped their journey. "Remember the wonders at the Red Sea, the manna in the wilderness. Our God is powerful, and his hand does not grow weary." Yet, unknown to Caleb, the shadows lengthened behind them, darkened by the remnants of despair and treachery. From the heights, the Anakim, though defeated, began to plot once more. Their hearts nurtured resentment and bitterness, whispering treason into the ears of those who hungered for dominance. "See how feeble the Israelites grow in their joy. Their victory was but a fleeting shadow," they taunted among themselves. As the Israelites advanced, they encamped at a site known as Gilgal. There, they raised the stones of remembrance to mark the wonders of their journey and the covenant of their God, Joshua 4 verses 20-24. "Each stone," Caleb instructed, "will remind our children of the deliverances we have known, to multiply the praises of our Lord." With the faith of their forebears and the fires of divine purpose igniting their hearts, they prepared once more for conquest. Caleb surveyed the rolling hills and valleys, knowing that Canaan was rich in promise but fraught with challenges. His prayer was unceasing. "O Lord, grant us courage and wisdom. Help us to remain vigilant against the enemy that stalks, even as we marvel at your blessing." As the sun climbed higher, a whispering breeze stirred the air, and the elders convened a council under the shade of olive trees. They sought counsel from the Lord in earnest prayer, yet Caleb's heart remained uneasy. "The Lord's plans are intricate," he mused privately, "and I seek not just clarity but the very essence of his will." Joshua then approached Caleb, laying a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "What troubles you, my brother? Are we not blessed to bear witness to the might of God?" Caleb sighed, knowing that joy must coexist with vigilance. For every triumph granted, there lies a lurking threat. The Anakim have not vanished, they dwell in the unseen. Let us be prepared in spirit, for the true battle lies not merely in the flesh but against fear and despondency. As evening descended, fears grew palpable, yet within the Israelite camp, hope glimmered like a beacon. They worshipped with songs of praise, their hearts knit together with the threads of faithfulness and covenant. Then, as silence fell upon the gathering storm, a hush overtook the crowd. The air was thick with expectancy, as if the heavens themselves awaited a word from God. Caleb raised his hands toward the sky, and in that stillness, the voice of the Lord permeated the darkness. "Prepare yourselves, O my people, for your eyes shall see, and your hearts shall know the wonders of my hand, as I unveil a plan beyond your imagining." What was this divine plan, veiled yet imminent? Would they find strength in the unseen, and dare confront the instability of hearts against the surging tide of their promised inheritance? With fervor ignited anew, the Israelites stood ready, yet the shadow of uncertainty loomed, for the mysteries of God's will were yet unfolding before them. In the days that followed their conquest, Caleb and his brethren settled into Hebron, a land flowing with milk and honey as promised by the Lord. The once daunting walls and towering giants now lay in the dust, testimony of God's faithfulness and power fully manifested. As Caleb gazed over the hills and valleys, he felt the presence of the Almighty hovering over the land, compelling and reassuring all who dared to dream of the future. "Brothers, this land is ours by divine decree." Caleb assembled the people once more, the fire of purpose igniting within him. Yet remember, our victory does not rest merely in this conquest, it is but the beginning of a journey into the depths of God's promise. We have much to build and much to reclaim, for a legacy must be forged in righteousness and faithfulness. Joshua stood beside him, firm in spirit and faithful as ever. Yes, for this is not just our inheritance, he proclaimed, but a sanctuary for generations who will look upon the mighty acts of God and praise his holy name. The people of Israel gathered, their eyes bright with hope but heavy with the realization that the journey ahead would require more than mere possession of land. It would call for the brave dismantling of strongholds of fear, doubt, and idolatry that still tainted the hearts of many. Caleb felt a stirring within him. "We will establish cities of refuge," he declared, his voice echoing through the assembly. "A place where the oppressed might come to know the mercy of God. For the Lord desires not just warriors, but his people to be a light to the nations." As excitement filled the atmosphere, Caleb admonished them to keep their hearts steadfast. "Seek the Lord in every endeavor and commit your plans to him. For as it is written, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Proverbs 16 verse 9. Let us be diligent. And so, they rose in unity, building a community grounded in faith and love, bringing forth a generation that would reflect the righteousness they had come to embrace. New altars were raised unto the Lord, filled with the prayers of the faithful and the stories of God's wondrous deeds. As time unfolded, the whispers of the Anakim began to fade, yet Caleb remained vigilant. He understood that while God had granted them victory over their enemies, there were deeper strongholds to address within. The shadows which whispered fear and doubt in the hearts of his people needed to be confronted anew. "Brothers," Caleb called once more, gathering the community around him. "Though we have seen the might of God, we cannot afford to grow weary. We must always keep the sword of truth ready and steadfast. For even with land secured, the greatest battle lies not without, but within the battle against despair and complacency." Among the people stood Othniel, a man filled with faith and fiery passion. "Together, we shall confront the chains that bind our hearts," he proclaimed, emboldened by Caleb's words. "Let us vanquish every spirit of doubt among us, declaring the truth of our God." With renewed vigor, they prayed and worshipped, seeking God's counsel as they discerned their next steps. Caleb often withdrew to the hilltops, there to commune with God, seeking further revelation of his sovereign will. It was during one such time that the whisper of the Lord came, clear and compelling. "Caleb, my faithful servant," the voice rang through the stillness, "the journey you have begun is for the establishment of a holy nation. You are to lead not just into conquest, but a restoration of the spirit. Stand firm, for as you've battled with giants in the flesh, so shall you confront those in the heart." Heavy with purpose, Caleb returned to his people, his heart ignited with the urgency of heaven. "We are not only warriors in battle, we are called to be ambassadors of faith. Let our journey reflect the truth of our God beyond every land, beyond every heart that longs for his embrace." Each family invested in building a legacy that honored their declaration of faith. They nurtured the next generation, teaching them the stories that defined their identity and the faithfulness of their God. "Remember what the Lord has done." Caleb often persisted, ensuring that the echoes of their past victories would light the way for the days yet to come. "Let it not be said that we stood idle, but that we bravely fought the battles that molded our spirit." The years flowed into the rhythm of life in Hebron, yet Caleb's heart remained watchful. With every triumph, he anticipated the hidden struggles that could rise, a reminder that the faithful must remain vigilant in prayer and practice. And so, as the sun set over the hills and cast shadows upon the land, Caleb, now advancing in age yet strong in spirit, gathered with his people one final time. With every soul present, he urged them to rise, exalting the name of the Lord that had led them thus far. "Let us walk into tomorrow with hearts lifted in faith and our eyes fixed upon the promises yet fulfilled. For he who has begun a good work in us is faithful to complete it." Philippians 1 verse 6. The people responded with a thunderous cheer that reverberated deep within the valleys, a promise to carry the mantle of faith forward, for they had tasted his goodness and seen his glory. Thus, in the fullness of God's divine plan, Caleb's legacy unfolded, one embraced not in mere conquest but as a testimony of faith's resilience against any enemy. The heart of Israel beat strong within the covenant of their God, their lives forever entwined with the truth they chose to carry forth into the generations to come. As the dawn of history unfolded in Canaan, Caleb's words and deeds became etched deeply within the fabric of the people, a declaration of hope rippling through time, proclaiming boldly, "The Lord is faithful, and he shall never forsake his covenant people." And so, let those who hear these words take them to heart. Stand firm in faith, embrace the promise, and let your life sing of the enduring truth and love of God. If this story has stirred your heart, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through the algorithm. Comment below with your spiritual reflections on how this powerful narrative impacted your faith journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to know of God's ultimate faithfulness and divine purpose in their lives. Together, let us carry forth this legacy of hope and faith into the world.